Hello, and welcome to another Analytic Endeavors live stream. Thank you very much for everyone joining. We're here with our lovely friend from Databricks, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Liping. I'm a Senior Solution Architect at Databricks. I'm based in London, UK. Nice to meet you.
So yeah, lovely. Thank you very much for being on, and thank you for joining us and everyone else joining us. I know we're on a slightly different day today, so we're on a streaming on a Friday. So thanks everyone, especially if you're coming in on your Friday evening here. So really excited, you're our first person on the stream from Databricks here. So we use Databricks quite heavily at Analytic Endeavors, do a lot of Microsoft, do a lot of Databricks stuff. Both play very, very nicely. So yeah, I understand you obviously were at Microsoft as well.
Yeah, I was at Microsoft for about 2.5 years. And then about 2.5 years ago, I switched to Databricks. So it's quite interesting to see both sides of the coin. And I do a lot of Power BI work today as well to do the Power BI and Databricks better together story optimization based on performance, security, so on and so forth. So yeah, it's been very interesting world that I'm living in these days.
Yeah, definitely. Microsoft and Databricks, obviously two of the biggest players, I think, in the data analytics space now. Interested to see and hear kind of how your job's changed, kind of coming from that Microsoft over to Databricks. What are some of the things you kind of spend your days on today?
It's an interesting question. So I did a slightly different role in Microsoft versus Databricks. So in Microsoft, I was aligned to certain technology. So I was aligned to Power BI, Synapse, as a SSA or workload CSA in Microsoft terms. So you focus on technology and you have your own domain area of expertise. Coming over to Databricks, I am pre-sales solution architect, so I focus on the vertical, how to apply Databricks to healthcare life sciences customers, or how to apply Databricks to financial services and insurance customers, and so on and so forth. So role is slightly different. In terms of company culture, it's very, very different worlds. I had a little bit of a system shock when I came from Microsoft to Databricks the first, say, 8 weeks, because Microsoft is a enterprise, right? It's a huge machine that you've every maybe other week you find out there's a new team that does something similar as you do, and if you need anything, there's always a process. There's also a team that does anything. So it's a very well organized machine, and you are a very small component to that. Whereas Databricks is more like a rocket going up, and things are changing all the time. When I started, everything was tracked in spreadsheets, and then we moved to Salesforce. And then every other week, when I fill out Salesforce, some fields that I am required to fill in changes. So every other week I'm filling the same form, and I barely recognize the form. It's a very, very fast changing environment, and I think in both worlds people are brilliant. In both worlds, people are really, really good at what they do, and you have a lot to learn just from working with brilliant people. And it seems like the product from both worlds are converging as well. Arguably, Power BI Fabric is pushing to the left, and Databricks is going to the right, doing things like AI/BI, dashboards, and Genie. So the world is converging. Everybody is going to do the same thing, which is everything in data platform, going from ingestion to serving as well as data consumption. So it's a very interesting world to be in. For me, it's more going from a corporation to a scale up, or the figuring out what's the best way of doing things, what's the new processes. 6 months later, there's a brand new different process you have to follow. It's very like if you're made for that pace of change, then Databricks is a great kind of place to be, and then you get used to it as well. after 2 months of system shock, you take everything as, yeah, that's just how it works now. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think Databricks, I mean, you know, fairly new as a company, especially when you compare them to Microsoft. And if you talked about Spark, which everyone is talking about a Spark and data lakes at the moment and data platforms, I mean, you can't obviously not talk about Databricks. Absolutely amazing, really, really fantastic product, I think. So as I say, we heavily use Databricks. We use Microsoft as well. We started to use more Fabric. Myself and Reed, who unfortunately can't be here today, obviously big Power BI users. So I think, yeah, we're really amazed at that kind of stack. Big fans of all of them. Really lucky to have you, who has experience going across both Microsoft and Databricks, which is really cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Like I said, Power BI is where I come from. I've always loved that developer community. I still, arguably, I do more Power BI work today versus Microsoft days, just because there's limited amount of solution architect in Databricks knows Power BI inside out. So I help a lot of people work with a global community on Power BI and Databricks better together. So yeah, that's still very much, where my heart and my passion is, and I just want to see the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah, definitely two tools that the integration is so strong, I think, between Microsoft and Azure, Databricks. So great step to work together. Today though, we're talking specifically about Databricks, and obviously a topic which we can't talk data and not talk about today, which is Gen AI. How do you see kind of Gen AI rising? I mean, in data, I think we agree a lot of places that it's been very, very useful. Probably some places where it's less useful in some tools, but I see something like data and coding, that's definitely one, which I've used heavily myself. So how do you kind of see that evolving in Databricks and everything you're doing?
So I think the application of Gen AI is everywhere today. Again, the amount of LinkedIn ads you see that's AI powered, it's probably flashing up every 5 seconds. To me, in this world, again, because I work in a highly regulated industry for healthcare life sciences, it's really important to get the performance of your model right, to be actually putting a Gen AI application in production, because it's affecting doctors, nurses, practitioners, and all that. So in that world, you have to design everything, have guardrail for everything, as well as have a human element to do review, and at least today's world, right? In future, it's developing fast. Today, it's still a co-pilot, not a autopilot. You don't really want AI summarize the prescription of someone and get that wrong. You want the doctor to gatekeep that. And but what we are talking about today is a lot kind of Gen AI applied to structured data. So Gen AI applied to unstructured data is Gen AI applied to your text data, you summarize doctor's notes or summarize someone's CV, email conversations, and so on and so forth. A lot of people are building chatbots, and that's getting really, really popular, and so on and so forth. But there's also an element, and a lot of people call it generative BI, which is you already have all these data in your lakehouse, right? You already have your gold layer of star schema and so on and so forth. How do you use Gen AI to apply to the structured data and get insight? Really get the insights in the hands of people who don't necessarily speak data, don't speak SQL, and don't have the patience to wait for you to build a pre-designed dashboard for them. So today, a lot of the content, or what we're going to talk about, is put Gen AI on top of structured data that you already have. maybe you have a Power BI dashboard on top. Maybe you have this semantic layer ready, but you haven't yet built a pre-designed dashboard, that kind of things. But we also will talk about the Gen AI functionalities on top of unstructured data as well.
Yeah, so I find this a very interesting topic, right? And especially someone who's come from a BI space, has did a lot of roles when I was building a lot of reports, a lot of dashboards, this sort of stuff. I think it worries people sometimes because they kind of think, is this getting eliminated? But I'm quite the opposite. I think there's always going to be that need for those structured reports, right? I'm still building PDFs to go out to board members, right? And that will never go away. That can't answer everything. And we've had a lot of talk with varying success, I think, about self-service BI. And I think a lot of the flaws in that, where it didn't quite take off as it could have been, I think something like this as a generative AI, or as a generative BI, as you call it, which is great, sitting next to kind of everything you're already having, as I say, is just going to make your work so much better as someone who's building this. And I think it's just an immediate amplifier of all the hard work you've done. So yeah, really excited.
Exactly. I think I structured this presentation to be boosting your productivity. Exactly like you said, I think Power BI is not going anywhere. Dashboarding is not going anywhere. There will always be a audience that love a dashboard. They can see a scorecard and see how their business is doing. All the traffic lights, they just identify where the problem is and go address those. That's not going anywhere. The generative BI is the other side of the coin, is to say when someone have additional questions on your pre-built dashboard, or they want to explore more, they don't have to wait for you to turn around and build yet another dashboard. And because they just have this ad hoc question, this dashboard might not be used ever again just to answer one question. So that kind of exploratory analysis, ad hoc request, I just want to get some clarification on some additional questions I have. That's great use cases for generative BI, is to give the business users the power to explore the data without having to rely on the data team and build all these like one-time dashboards that will not get used ever again.
I can tell you from my experience, exactly what you've described is one of the main reasons people always ask that dreaded question that anyone in BI has heard is, how do I export this to Excel, right? Every time you build a dashboard, everyone's heard this, everyone dreads it. Someone always says, how do I export to Excel? For a number of reasons, but I think probably in my experience, one of the main ones, if not by far the main one, is they just have a question that's slightly different to how you've laid out the dashboard, as people will. They have jobs to do, they have different questions. And then they know the only way they know how to get an answer is from Excel, they're familiar. So, I see this is a tool at finally, I don't think we'll ever get away from it, but finally getting that question less and less. And I think this can really alleviate that. So yeah, very, very excited for that reason alone. I'll say that.
Exactly, that's right. So there's like 4 billion Excel users around the world, but I think there's probably more people in the world that speaks English, Spanish, Chinese altogether. So you have more use cases for those who actually can use natural language to explore the data rather than knowing how to do VLOOKUP in Excel.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, I think you have a lovely demo for us as we've talked a lot around it. So I think this will be a great time when you're ready, and we can jump in.
Cool. All right. So let me know if you can see my screen.
Here we go.
Cool. So I'm going to get started with the Gen AI capability to help you with your productivity when you're developing. And this is basically something called Databricks Assistant. It's a free feature within Databricks. So instead of using GitHub Copilot, you could use Databricks Assistant in the Databricks environment for free to help you become a better developer. So right now I've got a table that is product reviews, right? So it's got some timestamp, what the product is, and some review data, which is great. So if I run this, it will just give me the results. And what I want to do is I heard Databricks has got AI functions that can help me analyze this review data better. So what I'm going to do is I will just start writing. And I think it's called AI Analyze Sentiments. My IntelliSense is not working. Right, so I'll try that. I will run that. Oh, it says, no, you can't do that. The syntax is wrong. So I will let this diagnose the error. So this is where the Databricks Assistant is kicking in and tell me how to do this. So it's got access to what code you've written. It's got access to your LLM model in the backend. It's also got access to the Databricks documentation to know what's the correct syntax is. So it's telling me instead of that, I should be using this syntax, so I can easily just put the code over. And what I really want to actually do is the text column, and I'll select the text column, and I'll also select the analyze sentiments, and this will run. And I apologize in advance. This I pre-run this earlier. This runs pretty slow today for some reason. I think
Friday.
Yeah, it's a Friday. The AI model is tired and just wanting to
Yeah.
go to the weekend. Just for the audience, if you're not familiar, the assistant, it's got Databricks' own AI model in the background. And now it's come up. So this is the review, and it's got the sentiment analysis on top, which is great. But in addition to sentiment analysis, I could also do different things. Just to show other capabilities you can do with Assistant as well. So this is a SQL environment. You'll be able to fix the code, for instance. You can do things like prettify. So it will prettify your SQL code for you. And you could also do things like optimize. So if you've written a very complicated SQL code, it will optimize the code for you. Assistant also works in Databricks notebooks, so doesn't just have to be the SQL environment. You can use Assistant for many different use cases, including like explore the data. So instead of writing the code, you can get Assistant to do a summary of what this table is about, or giving you different transformation logic and fix your code. You can also, for instance, in the notebook environment, give it an example of SQL code and get Assistant to translate SQL into Python for you. You can do things like adding comments to the code that you've written, or getting Assistant to explain the code that someone else has written for you. All of these will help you develop faster and better. And again, this is free feature within Databricks environment, so you can use it, at no extra cost. if we go back to our environment, so now we've got AI analyze sentiment, which is great. And I have my sentiment about my review, but I also maybe on top of this want to do something else. This is the Gen AI feature on top of the structured data, right? So all of these texts or reviews are structured data. I might want to use a different AI function for the text. I want to maybe summarize it. Let me close the assistants. I want to do this. For some reason it got stuck. Let me just create a new query. So if I run summarize, I can tell the model to summarize it in X amount of words. So one word, it maybe is too few to summarize the text. So we'll do summarize the review in 10 words for me. Ooh, it doesn't like it. I probably spelled summarize wrong.
I think this is so cool. Normally we're copying this out into Google, hunting down questions on forums, and now you've got your own LLM there telling you, what you've done wrong and knowing from the Databricks doc. So that is a very, very cool feature. I think a lot of people will really enjoy.
And if you're like me, that you can't spell summarize, it could help you a lot just to identify where your typos or code errors and so on and so forth is. And it will help you also. This doesn't just work in SQL environments. So it also works in your notebook environment. So if you have, let's say, ETL pipelines that have text data that's coming in, and you want to potentially do processing of those text data, you can have review data coming in and then summarize it and then do sentiment analysis and then put the sentiment analysis in, I don't know, silver layer, gold layer, and so forth. So you could do things like that. And now this has provided me the summary. I should have changed the column title, but there you go. You could also do something a little bit more creative. So you could say, use something like AI Gen. And what AI Gen does is something different. So instead of saying, summarize this or give me the sentiment of this, you can actually get the AI function to generate text for you. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to tell the AI function that you are customer service, respond to customer reviews in 50 words. So I'm not saying to get rid of your organization's customer service call centers, but this could be really cool if you build this into a chatbot to say you can actually generate like responses to certain customer reviews. So we'll rename this to this.
Again, I see a lot of these, as you say, just big time savers for doing a lot of that manual work, right? And you can probably have someone come check this and have a look, but now you're doing this and you've just got a lot of that lower value manual work that you had to do before, part of your job, and you can focus on just doing a lot more, I think, and getting that good head start with this. So
exactly really. That it's there's nothing that I did with like finding an open source model, hosting it on Databricks or elsewhere, or like spinning up a SaaS third-party model, finding the API points. None of the plumbing I've done so far. All I've done is to write a couple of lines of SQL query badly, calling a function and getting like the assistant to fix my code for me. And then you can generate text or summarize text or analyze the sentiment and so on and so forth. While this is running, because it's generating a lot of text, it will take a little bit of time. I just wanted to show the model behind this as well. So if you go to the Databricks documentation page, it will tell you right now the AI functions are powered by Llama 3.3. And previously, if you were to look at this maybe 6 months ago, it was powered by Mistral. So Databricks will always pick the best performing kind of open source model to host on Databricks and be the backend of AI functions. And if you have a preference on saying, I want to use a specific model for AI functions, instead of using the one that Databricks picked, you could use something called AI_query. And I will show you how to use AI_query in a little bit as well. Now let's go back to see this actually worked, right? So it said, oh, sorry to hear that, so sounded like human, and also says a lot of thank you, which means it's got great manners, right? So you can do things like that. You can tell AI Gen that you are a specific role and act in specific manners. You can also potentially do something like AI extract. So I work with professional services customers. They have a lot of job descriptions, a lot of company descriptions, and they would like to kind of extract certain entities out of job descriptions and company descriptions and so on and so forth. So you could also extract the data points out of a very long string of text. So what you do is AI_underscore extract, and you give it the column, and then you want to give it an array of everything that you're looking for. So here, what we can look for is a person, as well as maybe location. And we'll give it a different name. So now the AI function will go to the review column or the text column and look for these entities, the persons, locations. You can also do other stuff. You can do company names. You can do like emails, like the foundation model that's hosted in the backend will look for those entities for you. In addition to AI_extract, you can run the exact same syntax for AI_mask. So for AI_mask, basically what it does is it will mask these entities instead of extracting them. And that's great if you have like PII data coming into your platform, and those data cannot be seen by certain personas or can only be seen by certain personas. Instead of writing your own classification and this and that, again, this is boosting your productivity, is you can just have AI_mask as part of your pipeline and mask all of the PII sensitive data as part of the like entity recognition to say person, email, phone number are all masked as part of your pipeline. So that could also work. It does take a little time to run. The AI_extract and the AI_mask tend to take longer than all the other AI functions. But if you are having this as part of the pipeline, you should just have enough time for the ETL to run rather than a SQL query. I think that's the kind of demo I had on the Gen AI capability on unstructured data or text data.
Very, very cool. I think to be honest, even just looking at, the sentiment, thinking as a report developer, being able to really easily use one of this AI, we have a bunch of text. Normally what you do with that, you're building a dashboard or report. Can't do much generally with that, and we exclude it, but bringing in something just like the sentiment and being able to say, hey, look at the amount of negative, neutral, and positive. Not a hugely new thing, but I think a hugely easier way to do this in a couple of lines of code that, as you see, if you misspell, we can even have the Gen AI to help you. So that's one of my favorites. I think that's a really, really cool use case there. Yeah. As well as obviously the generation of stuff and summarizations.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's just that, people make mistakes, people make typos, and all of us Google syntax. And the amount of time that I Google how to write certain PySpark code is, if every minute I use on Google, I can get paid, that would be great. But yeah, that kind of things will boost your productivity. The time that you tend to spend on Stack Overflows can be saved because it's having diagnose errors and give you code suggestions. And especially on some very like niche, complex stuff, it works really, really well as well. And I think AI_mask also is a really good feature because a lot of my customers have a lot of effort built into like anonymizing the data or tokenize the data. If you can mask everything, if masking is good enough for your use cases, then AI_mask is really good for that as well. The next demo I have is Genie Space. I hope everybody has heard of Genie Space, but if you have not, then Genie Space is the feature within Databricks AI/BI product family, and it's giving you the capability to give access to your business users the data that you have prepared, right? So just to show you what I have in here is I've got some product description data and product sales data and so on and so forth put into the Genie Space. And what I have is to attach it to a SQL warehouse. You can give your end user sample questions. I'm too lazy. I can't be bothered. So we'll just go back to the chat. Now, I'm in this Genie Space. For an end user coming into here, just seeing the title, don't necessarily understand what is in this space. So what you can do is to get Genie to actually explain the data set for you. So Genie will have access to the metadata of your table, of your schema, as well as the catalog, and it will tell you what information it contains. And so you can potentially understand what kind of data is in this Genie Space and how these tables are connected through which columns and so on and so forth. Now, again, I'm a business user here, so I don't necessarily speak SQL and I don't want to write SQL code. So I'm just going to ask Genie, what are my top 10 selling products? Right, so right now, Genie's taking my question, looking at the metadata of these tables, and then translating my English question into SQL. It first will give you an explanation on what are the reasoning behind generating these numbers, and then it will give you the results. And you can see that it's actually giving you a graph as well. And if you have trust issues, you don't know whether this is correct or not, you can look at the generated SQL code for this as well. So for the people who want to verify that Genie did a good job in answering your question, they can actually look at the code that's generated to verify this is correct. And because Genie is context aware, so it's got the history of the chat, so I can do something like redo the query, right? I want you to do the same thing, but by total revenue, right? So now Genie's looking at the history and say, what was the previous query we've run? And then rank that by revenue for me. It doesn't want to rank by revenue. Let's try again.
See the benefit of having the SQL query underneath as well.
Yeah.
So I see that's one thing that's great with LLMs and stuff like this. You know, one of the big issues we have and with anything is hallucinations, anything like that. So being able to verify, I think, is a really important step, especially as an analyst or anything like that. So
yeah, exactly. So now it's understood. And when I said by total revenue, it understood the word total revenue and given me the actually sales quantity times sales amount. The reason it understood total revenue is because I've given it sample queries in the instructions. So as a author of this Genie space, I've written a sample SQL query that says the formula for total revenue is sales quantity times sales amount, right? That's all I said. And then in here, when my end user came in and asked the question for total revenue, it understood, oh, it's this table's sales quantity times this table's sales amount, and that's your total revenue. So you can train Genie's behavior to react to different type of queries or different type of language or abbreviations, like taxonomy that your organizations have by giving it specific instructions or SQL sample queries. So in the instructions, you can say things like, you know, this abbreviation stands for something, something, or my company's fiscal year start is February, something like that. So Genie can understand your specific company or use case context and react accordingly as well. So I'll give you another example. So what we can do then is to tell Genie to give me the product ID and product description of all products that are categorized as toothbrush. I want you to extract the description and the product ID for the products that are toothbrush, right? So here, what I'm trying to say is Genie can do fuzzy matches. So what I've asked is the products that are categorized as something, something. And the Genie created a SQL query that says main underscore category is like toothbrush. So it could do a fuzzy match of categorized as to main underscore category. It understood the question and wrote the SQL query accordingly as well. Again, if Genie wasn't doing the fuzzy match right, you could upvote, downvote, and when the author of the Genie space see the responses from the audience, they can add in additional instructions to help Genie behave better for specific type of queries as well. Now, if we go a step further, we can ask Genie to use a product description that we had in this table, product description, and I want you to dynamically reclassify the products that are categorized as toothbrush as either electric. Is that how you spell electric? No. Okay. Or manual, right? So now what I'm asking Genie to do is to dynamically reclassify the products that you've returned as toothbrush and give me the answer whether they are electric or manual. So if we go over, we got the product ID, we got the main category, we got the descriptions. If we go over to the right, there's classification. Right, so this is not a out-of-box feature within Genie. You do have to do a bit of an instruction, sample SQL query to do that. So if we look at the generated code of SQL, you'll see that there's an AI underscore query, and there's a endpoint of the foundation model that's Llama 3 that's given, and this is the instruction how it's using that Llama 3 to do the reclassification, right? And the reason Genie knows how to do that is because I have done the instruction here and I've given it an example of dynamic classification to say, when you see dynamic classification, this is what you do, right? Use the AI underscore query SQL function to actually dynamically reclassify the product based on the description, and this is what you do. Again, as the author of the Genie space, you can use things like AI underscore query, and you can use all of the AI functions that we talked about in the first part of the demo, the AI summary or the AI gen, AI analyze sentiment, to enhance the user experience of your Genie space. And later this year, Conversation API for Genie Space is going to come out. So instead of consuming Genie in Databricks Workspace or having your end user kind of coming to Databricks Workspace to do this interaction, you can embed Genie through a Conversation API to something like Teams or Slack or Power BI or whatever web app you have as a front end. So you can serve your business user the data that you have within Databricks platform using a Genie front end. They can do the exploration of the data on top of your gold layer, your serving layer, but in the UI of their choice. So I'm building a demo to embed Genie into Power BI. So you have the one side of a coin that's pre-built Power BI dashboard, and the other side of coin that you can explore the data that's behind the dashboard using Genie Space, and you have both sets of experience, that kind of things. Also within Databricks AI BI dashboard, there is a button that you can click. So you have the dashboard, you can click a button within that dashboard that says explore the data in Genie Space. That's again, the pre-built dashboard is there for the type of persona that likes to look at the dashboard, for the type of persona that likes to ask their questions or follow-up questions about the data. They have the option to move to a Genie Space or move to a Genie Space Conversation API UI to actually explore the data further as well.
So do you see, that now kind of this role of you hear, I think BI engineer is kind of becoming a bigger thing here, right? So we're not only building semantic layers and probably reports and dashboards, there's extra things like Genie spaces that now probably falls in a role to kind of build, and you can build these out, as you say, giving the users, getting away from the export to Excel. You need the data, I have to go do things manually, and then two of us will do it and get different answers. As I love that as, an extra tool in the belt of that BI engineer. I think it's becoming a more powerful position and more needed with AI, right? It's kind of enhancing that.
Exactly. And it's like you said, right? These BI engineers traditionally are familiar with SQL, familiar with potentially Power BI or any other visualization tools. And for leveraging the Gen AI capabilities in here, they didn't have to learn much more. They didn't have to learn RAG. They didn't have to learn evaluation and all the full-blown kind of Gen AI features or capabilities. They're still writing SQL here. They're just calling the AI functions. A lot of these complexity of model serving, like ML ops, all of these are abstracted away from the BI engineers. They can just write SQL and still leverage Gen AI to boost their own developer experience as well as the end user experience of their internal, external stakeholders as well.
Yeah, and I think the end users, right, and you get a lot of end users. Some people like, as we say, dashboards and reports. Some people like paginated or printouts of Excel still. Some like exploring via SQL and like a SQL endpoint. Others, and I think a lot now, especially as we get more used to it, like a natural language kind of way to interact. So just giving people more access, I think, as a BI engineer, as a data analyst, is really your role. It's to serve data. So the more ways you can do that in the ways that people want, I see this as a really, really great tool.
Yeah, cool. I think that is what I had as demos. I think regardless of what tech stack you choose as the front end, the goal is to put data or put really insights in the hands of the people who you need it, whether it's your business user, your analysts, or specific personas that are making decisions based on data. And whether that format that they need is a dashboard, natural language engine, Excel, or anything else, a platform should be able to have your stable serving layer of your gold layer, star schema, properly access controlled, and then serve all the consumption vehicles, like whether that's Power BI, Tableau, anything else, on top of that serving layer with proper access control and auditing.
Yeah. Very, very, very cool. Very cool things. And I think, as I said, there's a lot of places where AI is being shoved in everything now. I think there's a lot where it's less useful, but I see this as, both helping, and I loved that assistant, right? Just tell me exactly where my syntax is. He's someone who's written a lot of code, and anyone who's written any code knows, you've got a comma in the wrong place and you've spent 20 minutes trying to debug something. All been there. So having that, then you focus on the important things and the actual difficult stuff, and helping that to kind of get away with the silly syntax errors and spelling errors that we'll make. But then, that really like the Genie spaces, and see a lot of people. Genie space authoring is going to be kind of on par with board authoring, report authoring, I think, and having those both will make you a really strong individual to present data and insights, as you said.
Yeah, I think, things like full-blown Gen AI applications on top of sensitive unstructured data, these are to come, right? These are, like we said, co-pilot. You still need a human agent to review a lot of the content before certain decisions are made and so on and so forth. But there are very, very safe, let's say, applications of Gen AI features like these productivity improvements. You're not breaching any kind of, leaking any enterprise sensitive data or PII data. You're just improving the performance or the effectiveness of your data engineers and data scientists, as well. Like, instead of having the analysts build like 3,000 pre-built dashboards, you can spin up a few Genie spaces and get your end user to ask their own questions. It's just like time saving, efficiency for different enterprises, and for that, to me, is a very quick win versus building a production grade agentic framework that's external facing, making sure it's secure, safe, apply all the guardrails. That will come, and that will be a point that we have agentic, and then human review, and then maybe agentic. But these are very, very quick wins where you don't have to understand the whole of Gen AI, the whole of LLM and architecture and the RAG and the CAG and all that. You can just use that as long as you know SQL. So yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And a lot of stuff coming out from platforms, I think, is really empowering people to do a lot more by kind of doing a lot of that for you, and that security and all of that stuff built in. That's amazing, right? Because no one really likes setting that, and no one likes getting it wrong. So having all that, I think, is really, really good, and I look forward to speeding that part of the process up.
Yeah.
So we'll say I've got a question then. Coming up, what as a member on the Databricks team, what kind of tools are you most excited, do you think, coming up on the roadmap that we see?
I think so. On particular Gen AI front, we're investing a lot into helping customers build out Gen AI applications and productionize these. Because if you're just building a POC because it's cool, it grabs the attention and help you get funding, but if it's not in production, it's not generating your company any value. And we're building a lot more features in the pipeline to help customers kind of productionize their Gen AI application, especially on, kind of you build the agentic application, you deploy it, and then you evaluate it, and then you have the guardrails around. So this whole flow of wherever you call it, Gen AI ops, LLM ops, we're coming up with a lot more features to help you do that. And arguably, probably evaluation is the hardest piece in that flow, because you have, today there's a lot of need for human reviews, human labeling. We are also investing to get better LLM as a judge evaluation data set to help you kind of balance that human labeling versus LLM as a judge, and to have that evaluation a little bit more systematic, a little bit more automated as well. So a lot of our stuff roadmap is going to be announced in June at Data and AI Summit. So I'm not allowed to say a lot before that. But if you are interested in roadmap items, we have a quarterly public roadmap announcement webinar. So attend those. We'll share like public available roadmap items on there. And then during June, we typically do big bang announcements on all the new features as well.
Yeah, excellent. Very excited. Definitely, we'll continue and be attending those. One thing I want to say is, the guardrails and everything around that. I read an article the other day saying, I forget the percentage, but they did a study and it's about half of the, probably more, people were sneaking Gen AI into their work, right? Trying to go around because they've been banned, but they're still using like the public ones, obviously with data security. So I think, you can't underestimate the importance of that, and that's why having something in a system like this is really cool to see, and hope this sort of expands, within Databricks and in other tools and software.
Exactly. So like we have features like AI Gateway that help you do tracing, rate limiting, access control. It's really important. You have a central kind of governance tool like that or feature like that to help you guardrail everything through, whether that's a foundation model that's hosted on Databricks or a third party like OpenAI endpoint. Everything gets flown through the AI gateway, and then everything's access controlled and traced, audited, logged, and that's super important for like enterprise data security and privacy. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, no, that was an excellent demo. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Really cool stuff. I'm really excited to kind of see how this evolves. So we love Databricks here, so it's really exciting to see this and more cool stuff coming up. So no, thank you so much for coming on. Really great session.
Thank you for having me, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Have a great.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining on a Friday evening on Valentine's Day as well, if you're watching this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.